Hello, everyone. I'm Jason, and we want to say thank you for tuning in to the Walk and Talk Faith podcast. We can't wait to dive into the next episode, but before we do, here's a quick reminder you can find the show notes, links, and more in the description below. Also, if you enjoy the podcast, please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to share it with your friends. Now let's get started with the episode. Enjoy, and remember, God is on the air, and so are we.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Walk and Talk Faith podcast. As we like to say here, God is on the air, and so are we. So, previously, we were talking about Christian media and entertainment, and we were talking about films and music. One pastime that I think everyone can agree with is that in a lot of churches, most churches, if not all of them, there's some form of like theater or even just, well, in the 90s we called them human videos. I don't know if anyone's remember that that term.
No, that's a new one on me.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
I knew that.
if you were in like
church?
youth
No.
groups, if you were in youth groups, like there would be like human videos, and most of the time it would be like to a contemporary Christian song, and then it would be like people acting out these motions. There's actually like national competitions for this kind of thing. But either way, I want to just bring that out there right off the bat. Like, let's talk about Christian musicals, plays, human videos, skits, whatever we want to call them.
Okay. I can take the lead on this. For me, one of the more prominent ones, I guess, Christian, I don't even know if it's Christian, but or sort of that has some connotation of religion, is Sound of Music. So many of you guys may know, right? The story of Maria. Wasn't her name Maria? Yeah. No, I'm singing the wrong song, y'all. Anyways, so Maria, who leaves the convent, the nunnery, I guess, to go take care of a family, and she ends up falling in love with the what I don't know his name. Anyways, she ends up falling in love with
Mr. Von Trapp.
the
I don't
there it
remember his
is,
name.
the divorce
Yes, the Von Trapp.
divorce. Anyways, him.
Governor.
Yes, and the governor. Yeah, and I love the music. I love the music. If anything, it taught us about music, and I think there was one song in particular that resonated with so many people, and to this day it's still sung, right? It's Climb Every Mountain. It's a metaphor, right? So you climb every mountain. You basically we talked about hills and valleys and such, but climbing a mountain was something that you foresee as so monumental, ahead of you. And they did exactly that actually towards the end, right? So they did actually climb the mountain to get to the top, and then they saw where they were heading as they were escaping their country. So for me, that musical um stuck with me, and I truly, truly loved it. And my church, actually, not this church currently, but my church a couple years ago, I want to say maybe 10 plus years ago, did their own version of Sound of Music. And then on that note, my church, the same church, also did a version of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is the story of Joseph as he'd been, sold by his brothers to as a slave to the Egyptians, and then 13 or so plus years later, he we all know the story where he interprets a dream for Potiphar, and Potiphar makes him into his secondhand person, and then he has a dream himself. He had a dream of when he was younger, right? That he was going to be the more superior over his brothers, and they didn't like that, so that's the reason why they sold him to the Egyptians and whatnot. So anyways, that my church did that musical as well. So those two, I think, have that carry a message, um, whether they were biblical, whether Sound of Music was biblical or not. But it again, it spoke to many genres and different types of faiths, walks of faiths, and it taught about pursuing your dreams and leading you, having God guide you and lead you to where you're to go. And same with Joseph. God spoke to Joseph in dreams,
Yeah.
and he even spoke to, Potiphar in dreams, and Joseph was the only one that could interpret that to let Potiphar know that this is what God is saying. So those are the two musicals that stick with me. Anybody else?
I love the story of Joseph because, it's such an inspirational story.
Mhm.
Kind of unrelated, but that reminds me of like this meme thread that I was reading on Twitter. The question was, if you could go back and meet anyone from the Bible, who would it be? And the top liked answer was Potiphar's wife.
Really?
A
Yes,
joke. I
you
mean,
know
it
the
is.
story. Do you know the story about Potiphar and Potiphar's wife, where she tried to seduce him and then try to make him basically turn from God, and even turn from her own husband, and have an affair with her. Yeah, that's a good one though. I love that. That's really good.
No, I
Uh,
didn't know that, but I
yeah,
will tell anybody who's watching that if you've never seen Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, it is very good. It
it
is
is.
very, very good. If you're able to find a recording, one of the movie adaptations, anything like that, it is worth watching. It's very good.
Check it
The
out. I've
music is
never seen
very,
it.
yeah. Oh, you'll love it. The music's very catchy, right? There's some tunes that are, some argue though. Some Christian um, leaders argue that it was kind of a mockery, but I didn't see it that way, because I thought that it was a very unique way of telling the story of Joseph, and it was family, quote unquote, friendly, that my church did it, and even had children be a part of the musical. So I thought that it was nicely done. It was done in good taste, and it told the story. So I think if there are musicals that could do that, that can take Bible stories and then turn them into stories where families can enjoy together and then still speak the message. I think that's a wonderful way in which to introduce those types of stories to your children and to your
Yeah.
families. And we talked about earlier about a movie just prior to the other episode, or the first part of the episode, about the King of Kings, right? So that was a story that was told in animated form. And it told the story about Jesus and how he died. And it was less gory, but people argue, well, is it telling the truth? Well, it's telling the truth because it's telling the truth for children so they can grasp it, right? And then they can be interested, and then they can further their faith, and rely on their parents to be able to nurture that. So I think any entity that does that can tell the story of a Bible story and about a Bible character, and so on, that does it in good taste, is fascinating. So I'd like to see more and more of those, actually.
It got me thinking when you said that. Some people think that it's a mockery, and then I thought about the one that was so controversial, which was Jesus Christ Superstar. I never
Yeah.
saw it. I don't know if any of you did.
I
So
have.
I'm not. I can't attest to it, but I know that there were so many people. There was an uproar about it. So many people were saying that that was definitely one that mocked
Mhm.
truth and Jesus Christ. So, what are your thoughts, TJP? Is that what you felt?
I watched it like only a few years ago for the first time. I always heard that growing up, and so like from this point, like when I watched it, I kind of had that context in mind. The way I
Mhm.
saw it was, I wouldn't say it was so much more of a mockery, but it was kind of a secularized telling of the gospel story, and it was kind of, I mean, for lack of a better term, it was like if Jesus was a hippie. That's kind of the vibe that I got
Oh,
from it. You know what I mean? But in
got
some
it.
ways,
Yeah.
like some people could argue that Jesus was very much about like love and like
Mhm.
peace and in an era when that wasn't what the world was wanted. A lot of people wanted violence. A lot of people wanted you know
Right.
separation and stuff like that. So there are some good things to take from it for sure. But again, of course, I think it's up to anybody to really decide whether or not they want to receive a film like that or a musical like that. Anyway,
I'll have to evaluate it for myself.
yeah, of course. I think that's
Yeah.
the best way to go about it.
Speaking of Jesus as a hippie, that Jesus Revolution movie, that's all. Now I picture Jesus as a hippie.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause-
That actually was a good movie. I enjoyed that movie too. I know we're off the movie subject, but if in terms of musicals and plays, I don't think I've seen very many in that respect. I could be wrong. And if somebody out there has more of a list, please share it with us. We'd love to be able to see what that is. But I do want to talk about a very local church here in Southern California that used to be. It's no longer, but it used to be Crystal Cathedral out in Garden Grove, who made it a point to do every single year either the Glory of Christmas or the Glory of Easter, and they put on this big production. It was just absolutely
Huge
beautiful.
production.
Yes, again, telling the story of Jesus' birth, telling the story of Jesus' death and resurrection. So if they could do that with great taste, beautiful taste,
Mhm.
and still be able to tell the story, and then bring more and more curious people, maybe who have never heard the story, or maybe who have heard the story but not have heard it or seen it in this context or that context. I think it's glorious. That's what Christian musicals, plays, and any entertainment media should be doing, is
Ab-
speaking truth about the gospel, speaking truth about God. And if they could do that with taste, right, good taste, and reach the audience, the target audience that they want, then that's kudos on them. I think that's beautiful. So yeah, I definitely would like to see more and more of those types of musicals and plays and movies and whatnot. Like I said, if anybody out there has a list, please let me know, or let us know.
Yeah,
Please.
let us know in the comments. We
Yeah.
want to
Yes.
know if you know of some that we don't mention here.
Exactly.
I've had the chance to see the Glory of Christmas live one year. We took my entire church down to what was then the Crystal Cathedral, now it's the Christ Cathedral,
Right.
to watch the whole production. And it was a very touching experience.
Yes.
They had like live animals, they had, you know, amazing singers. I think they
Right.
had one year I went, they had this lady that did a version of Mary Did You Know, and it tore the entire house down.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an all around beautiful, beautiful experience. Unfortunately, they had financial issues, which stopped the whole thing, but it was
Yeah.
a very touching experience. And I know it's still around on DVD. You can definitely find it on DVD
I
now.
think you can too. And then just to give you a little bit of context too, because there was, again, the stories of Jesus's birth and his resurrection and death and resurrection. But they, for each production, they actually had I shouldn't say trapeze artists, but there were aerial artists that were,
Yes.
they were on lifts, and they were angels, Gabriel, as he came down to speak or to tell the shepherds that Jesus was born, that angels when the stone was rolled away. So I mean, it just a beautiful depiction of the stories.
So it's like a Christian Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
One of my favorite stories, that part.
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
they did Angels We Have Heard on High, and they have this beautiful pipe organ in the
Yes.
cathedral. I mean, it's one of the larger pipe organs that is out here in Southern California, and it is so beautiful. And during that song, the pipe organ was just playing. They had the trumpets going and everything from the organ, which is surround sound. It's a surround sound
Mhm.
instrument, so they had different ranks all around us. And the entire time, covered in white lights above us, all the angels were just flying around overhead,
Yeah.
pretty.
singing this song. I'm like,
That sounds like quite an experience.
wow. It was just beautiful. It was a really amazing thing to be able to experience.
I'm glad you said that because you guys may not know this about Music Drummer, but he's also a keyboardist, right? And he plays a mean Hammond organ. And I'm so glad you brought that up because the actual organ was on stage. So they had,
Yes.
sorry, they had the organist right on stage, but behind it were the pipes, which were
Mhm.
amazing. It was like it was an attraction in and of itself. That alone was an attraction
Right.
because to be able to see those, the pipe
And not
organs
just
as
behind
huge
them.
as they were. Yeah.
And not just behind it, but there's pipes to the left, pipes to the
Everywhere.
right,
Yeah.
pipes behind us. It truly was a full 360 instrument with multiple manuals that you can use to really throw sound around the entire cathedral.
Wow.
Right.
And I know it's a bit off topic, but they recently had a restoration organ, a restoration of the organ because it's very expensive to keep up these type of organs, and so they restored the entire organ in about just after the pandemic. They rededicated the organ and had a whole concert, restored everything, painted all the pipes. It's sounding so good now. I'm so happy they were able to do that.
That's awesome. Good to know. Well, we'll have to go take a field trip down there one day and go check it out.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to see the Crystal Cathedral once, way back when it was still the Crystal Cathedral, and I thought it was amazing. Like after worship,
Wow.
they open up the ceiling, because it's all like motorized and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
Oh,
cool.
neat. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, y'all, if you ever go to Disneyland on a Saturday, go to the cathedral on the Sunday, right there in
I don't know
Garden
what it's
Grove,
called anymore.
I think they
whatever it's
busted the
called.
rules a little bit.
The cathedral.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yes, they
think there's
call
a
it
few
Christ
cathedrals in
Cathedral now.
LA. I mean, that kind of
Yeah.
doesn't
Well,
It's
narrow
in
it down
Garden
for
Grove.
travelers.
it's in the same
Garden Grove.
area-ish,
Yeah, pretty much. I love that, TJB. I'm just clowning you. That's good. I like how he says, yeah, go visit the cathedral.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame
Yeah.
that it's no
Is it
longer.
this way or that way?
Yeah, it's the Christ Cathedral now, and it's a Catholic church, so you can just go in and join a Catholic mass,
Ah,
and that whole experience, because it's different from what I'm used to. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
this you will do what they call the Catholic calisthenics, which is going up and down on your knees the entire service, which was an experience. Um,
We know that all
so,
too well.
Yes.
yeah,
Take
I
it
never
from a guy
experienced
who's
that.
been Lutheran and Episcopalian his whole life. Yes, there's a lot of up and down in a traditional liturgical service.
And we love all of
Um,
you. Okay. We love all our Catholic friends and our Lutheran and Episcopal friends. We love you all.
Amen.
but my knees though, my knees were like what?
Oh my goodness.
But
Uh,
so other plays that I've had a chance to see, well, not in person, but like they're not exactly like full Bible, but they have elements of Jesus in it. Tyler Perry, you
Hmm.
guys know he has all of his products and all of his things, and every single one of his plays. Sure, you had the comedy, sure you had something crazy out over the top happening, but at the root of his plays, the entire time you would see Jesus. They would always be pushing Jesus, being like, "No, you need to pray. You need to ask God and see what to do about this." There's not a play that he would do where you would not experience Jesus at all. And so I think that's another way of like, introducing, God to people that may not even watch anything religious whatsoever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like and then he's still like there's always some type of church scene in his plays that like really keeps bringing people back to God and
Mm.
why you should like
Right.
yeah.
yeah.
My wife's family, well, especially my mother-in-law, she was always into like just watching like the Christian Broadcasting Network and only listen to like worship music on the radio, but they did love watching the Tyler Perry films together because it always had like some, although it's very, there's all the comedy, right? But it always had some like meaningful, like Christ-filled message in there as well.
Nice. Good. Very nice,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yep.
One thing I want to share about talking about churches that were putting on events or plays. Way back when I was younger, I was about maybe like 9 or 10 years old around this time. There was a church here near around Sacramento that always every year put on a play called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, and it was an interesting experience because the play is very simple. It's just a single stage, and it's just a bunch of sketches, and the premise is an individual dies, and then they arrive at the gate of heaven, and then the angel looks in the book of the Lamb's Book of Life and tells them whether or not they go to heaven or they go to hell.
Wow.
So there's
my.
there's this sketch, right? Like for example, there's a sketch where a husband and wife are driving, and the wife goes to church, and and she's trying to convince her husband to go to church with her, and he's like, no, you have enough religion for the both of us, just pray extra hard for me, right? and then they're driving and they get into a car accident, and then they both die in the car accident, and they both arrive at the gate of heaven. And then they go up to the angel and they ask, like, the wife asks, am I in the Lamb's Book of Life? The angel nods. You hear this music, hallelujah. And all these angels come out and they open the gate and they let the wife in. And then the husband tries to join her, right? Because, and then the angel's like, like the gate's closed. And he's like, angel, am I in the Lamb's Book of Life? And then what always happened was, because the husband, never accepted Christ, didn't go to church, the angel would go like this. Well, they would nod their head, and then they would go like this to cover their eyes, and these strobe lights turn on. The lights go dark, and there's these like people in black robes with like glowing eyes coming out. And then they drag him, away while he's screaming.
Oh my goodness.
That is
Wow, that's
traumatizing.
pretty vivid.
It was pretty vivid, and they would do multiple sketches like this. There was one where this woman was like, abusing drugs, and she had a lot of trauma in her life, and she was just like, and she overdoses, and unfortunately, that we know what happens after that, because she wasn't, she was talking about in her sketch that she wasn't a believer and she didn't believe in that type of salvation, and unfortunately, she's not in the Lamb's Book of Life as well. But anyway, after the play, the pastor comes up and they start playing the soft music, of course, as we know how this goes, and they ask, like, if anyone would like to accept Christ and ensure that their name's in the Lamb's Book of Life, just say this prayer with me. They want, like, they always say, like, nobody looking around, right? And then they ask you to say the prayer. And then they go, wait a minute now. If you said that prayer, I want you all to raise your hands. You know what I mean? Then they start calling you out. And then there's like, if you raised your hands, I want you to stand up. And so, and I was like, when I was young, I thought that was a really important moment, like, because, I think I did believe, like that was, like an important thing, like not just because of what I was learning in my life, and so both my friend Ronald and myself, we stood up, and then they asked us to come to the front. Fast forward to a few years later, I'm applying to a Christian program abroad to study like church media production, and one thing they ask is, what was your salvation date? And so I'm trying to think back, because I grew up in church, and I was like, so it's like, it's really difficult for me to specifically say when was the date I got saved. So I'm all trying to rack my head about it, and I talked to my dad, and I'm like, and it turns out that day that we watched Heaven's Gate and Hell's Flames, my dad wrote it down in his Bible and said Daniel went up to receive Christ today. And so I was
It's
like,
beautiful.
wow, so yeah,
As good as
Yay!
any date, right? I
right,
mean,
right, right,
I'm in the
right,
same
right.
situation where I was just heavily churched the whole time I was growing up, and it. I can't put my finger on a specific day when I received Christ. He's just always been a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yes. I mean, I think it's wonderful that people can say, "Yeah, I know the day that the light bulb went on. I know when it was that I
Hmm.
fell to my knees and received Christ in my heart." That's great. I have no idea when that was for me.
In the same boat with there.
Got it. I love how you said that your dad wrote it down. So he was
Yes.
cognizant. He saw you, right? It was like meaningful to see his son, right?
Hmm.
Raise his hand and just go through all the acknowledgments, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And for your dad to be able
Now,
to record that information is wow.
Yeah.
One of these days
was
I'd
this
love to be able to do it for my children and say, I'm waiting. I'm still waiting. So yeah, that's beautiful. Good on your dad. Yay.
Yeah.
I'm
Good.
curious,
Yeah.
this play, was this mostly for like older kids or older people, young adults,
It
or
was like it was that kind of
what's the
thing where
age?
like people would bring their whole like church groups out, youth groups would come out to visit to watch these plays. It was basically a big event, and like I said, yeah, it was a little scary. It was a little like
It sounds
disturbing in some
intense.
ways,
Yeah.
pretty
But it's
intense.
it's
But
reality based.
it's yeah,
Intimidating. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a reality check
Yeah,
type of play for
Yeah.
sure.
it is. It is, and it's most impactful for the teens and the young adults.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Those plays are usually most impactful during that stage in your life.
Yeah.
I, I used to work with little kids, so I worry about them a lot, because
Mm,
that gets a little bit challenging when you have younger kids that see some stuff like that.
right.
Like for the older ones, I'm like, sure, yes, go for it, give them that,
Right.
because they can understand that much more than the little kids that I've worked with a lot when I was doing the youth group and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So
I love all
Yeah.
the new next gen, generation, all the new next gen ministries, right? That speak to the
hmm
children, the junior high and high school ministries, even young adults, right? I know our church has that.
yes,
But one thing that resonates to me, we're totally going off topic, nothing to do with musicals or plays. But do you guys remember those Christian tracks? Remember those tracks that they would
Oh
pass
Hmm.
out?
yeah,
They
yeah.
were like
yeah,
in
yep,
comic
So
form, right?
Yes.
And
yep.
then some of them were really dark, not so much, some of them were like, like lighthearted, but then man, when it hit home, like those messages at the end and some of them would be like, the left behind messages or, somebody's dying in the hospital and they have an opportunity to or had an opportunity to give their life to the Lord. Maybe they were brought to the church or a camp or whatever and they just ignored the message and here they are on their deathbed. They actually showed it, right? That they're and then talk about being your name being in the book of Lamb. They actually
Hmm.
showed it on these or these tracks, these Christian tracks. Man, I went looking for them not too long ago and I couldn't find them, so I don't know where to buy them. If anybody knows out there
I
in
I do. I looked
YouTube
them
land.
up.
Probably
I found
Okay,
them. I
cool,
because I
cool.
also wanted to buy some, but the ones that I found were like a 325 each
Oh
track.
oh,
wow,
I
each
was like,
track.
ooh,
that's
That's
expensive.
I
expensive.
can
yeah.
only give it to like 10 people.
I would have
Yeah,
thought they would
But
give those for free.
yeah.
not anymore.
Yeah, I
They
know.
charge
Yeah,
them.
that's
They
expensive.
charge for them. Yes, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
other ministries that may charge like 25 cents a pop, but the ones that I found were pretty expensive.
Yeah, but they
I
were
I
just
very
remember last time
effective.
I went there, I saw a few at Word of Life bookstores,
mhm.
Uh-huh.
and they're like a small little black-owned bookstore that they have a few out here in the LA area, and they
Right.
have quite a few of those tracks like that.
Yeah.
for
I
somewhat
the,
reasonable price.
but they're very
But
effective. I know that sounds
yes,
corny, but and you don't
they
see
are.
them as much anymore, but they were very effective. In my day, they were totally effective. Like that was the thing we were doing. We were passing those out, when we were street evangelizing, when we would
Yes.
take a group of people and we would do street evangelism or go to the beach and street evangelize there, or we went to what we call a Jesus walk out here in Southern California way back in the 19 we, we, we would pass those out. So yeah, oops, I just aged myself. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with those tracks, but we knew how effective it was. So man, and sometimes it would like turn my heart, like, oh my gosh, that person's reading, and like I would see them reading it and I'd be like, we shouldn't be here. It's like we're eavesdropping. We shouldn't be looking. We shouldn't be, well, here, I'm just passing this out. So read it when you have a chance. And they were reading it and we're like, oh no. Oh no. But I wasn't, it's not that I was embarrassed. It was just like, you know, I just didn't want them to get angry. Like, you're the messenger. You're delivering the message. You're doing what God tells you to do. Go deliver the message, and it's how they receive it. It's just between them and God, really. So I felt like it had to be a personal thing for them. So I was like, I'm not trying to invade your personal space. You can read it like another time. Go read it somewhere else. But yeah, that's that. But they were very effective, and I wish I could grab some of those. But yeah, Edna, share that with us. I'd love to be able to
Yeah, I'll look for it.
look at that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, speaking of
Anybody
those
else?
tracks, I think that's a good springboard into our next segment,
Yeah.
which was Christian books and podcasts, which is really going to light me up.
Yeah. Go
That's your
for it,
field, Jay.
Jason.
Yes.
Yeah, this, as you see behind me here, I'm an avid reader. You see two bookshelves. What you don't see is that there are five more here surrounding them
Oh my
that are full of
goodness.
books.
Oh
I
wow.
actually have 7 shelves here that are packed full. Um,
Whatever. Okay.
and
You win. No, I'm just kidding.
I win what? I
No.
love books.
Yeah.
I
Good.
love books.
I'm
When do you
sorry.
have
Can we have
time
to
to
take a quick
read them? Oh
second?
my goodness.
I've
Yeah.
been around a while. I'm like you. I was born in
Yeah.
a long time ago, so I've had a lot of time to read.
You couldn't
Uh,
even say 19 something.
I can say 19 something. That
I was
includes that
born
just about
in
everybody here.
the 1900s.
Yes, I was born in the 20th century, as were all of us, I think.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so tell us some of your books that you like to
Just
read
real
or
quick.
have read.
Oh, well, I have dozens of them. I don't even know where to begin because some of them are extremely obscure and some of them were very, very popular. Um, I will tell you one that's pretty controversial,
Okay.
and that is the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins.
Oh yes.
Yes.
These
Yeah.
were, as far as fiction goes, they're fairly well written. They kind of push. They force some turning points in the books, and there's some skip arounds and things like that. So they're not the best fiction, but they are good books. My only issue with them is the point that is controversial is whether or not there's going to be a rapture. Some people are absolutely convinced that there's going to be a day when a rapture comes. I'm not, because a rapture implies that we get 2 bites at the apple. And Jesus was very clear that when he comes, he's coming. You better be ready. So we'll find out who's right about that when the day comes.
Ooh, there's a
Um,
song that Crystal Lewis sings called Jesus, or Jesus Get, or what is it? People Get
People
Ready.
get
That's what it
ready.
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
There you go.
that's the one. Yep. And but whether or not you believe there's going to be a rapture or not is not a good reason to discount these books, because they are
No.
very good books. They are
Okay.
books about people who made hard sacrifices, found themselves in a difficult situation, found their way to Jesus even though they weren't at the start. And about the persecution that is promised in the book of Revelation and things like that. The books actually take some very literal interpretations of Revelation, which
Mm,
gets kind of vivid in the books. Like the
right.
swarms of locusts are actual large locusts that are screaming for
Mhm.
Abaddon as they attack. So it's a little bit vivid, but they are good books, by any measure.
Mhm.
They're
I
not
have
the
a
best, but
question.
they are very good. Go
Mm.
ahead.
Are they is that related to the Left Behind movie series, or are these something that's entirely different?
No, the Left Behind movie series was based on these books.
Okay.
Okay.
Another book that I absolutely love that is probably not very well known. I believe it's actually used as a college textbook sometimes. To give a little background, when I was in my early 20s, I had been Lutheran my whole life. And I said, well, I love Jesus. And that's the most important thing as a Christian to me. But why am I Lutheran? What's so important about being Lutheran per se? Because there's a lot of denominations out there.
Right.
And so I spent a long time doing a lot of research, visiting other congregations, visiting other denominations, seeing how they conduct their services, how their worship works, what they consider sacraments, things like that. Talking to pastors, talking to priests in Catholic churches, reading books, read the Bible cover to cover twice, if I remember correctly. I mean, it was a very, very in-depth journey. And one of the books I read was a book called Kingdom of the Cults. And this is actually used by Walter Martin. And this is actually, I believe, a college textbook that's used in some seminaries. And it's not a light read.
Clearly.
But it does teach
that
a
looks very thick.
lot about the core tenets of the Christian faith. And this book specifically is about what some people call counterfeit Christianity, where people have strayed from the gospel teachings, where they're still trying to teach as a Christian church, but the gospel is too radical, so they lean away from it, which is the opposite of what we should be doing as Christians. We should be leaning into the gospel. And this book taught me a lot about what to look for as far as, what kind of faith to be leery of, and what to, which faiths have kind of lost their way. But in either way, it's a very good book just to recenter your faith. It really is. But like I said, it's not a light read. You might want to, if you run across a certain denomination that you have questions about, or a certain congregation that you have questions about, you might find a chapter about it in here.
Okay.
And equally obscure from that same window was a book called The Early Church. And I forgot who this was by. Henry Chadwick. Henry Chadwick is, I believe, was a seminary professor, a theology professor at a seminary. And this book teaches about the history of the early church and how people were forced to congregate in small secret sessions because of persecution by the Romans, and about how the sacraments were developed and how the creeds were developed, which, not a lot of churches recite the creeds. Typically, the more traditional churches that use a liturgy, will recite the creeds. And this has the history of how the creeds were written, where they were written, what influenced them, and things like that. And the creeds are amazing. I really like them. But this is a good history and foundation for where modern faith came from. Also, there was famously a man who was, what some people call a devout atheist. Who through turns of event in his life found his way to Christ. And he was a journalist. And so he started doing a lot of research and investigating, okay, what is there for, and again, this is a little bit controversial because we understand Jesus's role and what Jesus did for us through faith. Faith is the most important part of our faith. We don't need proof because we have faith.
Yeah.
But he sought to seek out proof. Okay, what is there? And he wrote a book called The Case for Christ. His name was Lee Strobel. And you've probably heard of this one. This book is pretty famous.
Oh yeah.
And he wrote this book called The Case for Christ. And he basically drilled down into how likely is it that somebody would be in Christ's position anywhere else in history. Anybody else could have performed his miracles. Anybody else who would have descended from the house of David and would have had all these specific things that are called out in the Old Testament that came true in the Gospels. And it's a fascinating look at, just what it takes to believe in Christ.
So what's some of the cases that he made in that one?
Oh, you're telling me
Pick like
you
one or
asked me
two.
20 years after I read the book.
Can I chime
I'm
in with
interested. I
something?
want to.
Uh,
I want to read that book. It sounds.
mm.
I never heard of that one.
It's
So.
very good.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
the statistical odds of another person meeting all the requirements that the prophets called out for Jesus are like, I can't remember, some insane number, like 1 in 13 trillion, like more people than have ever lived.
Hmm.
It's very fascinating.
I love all the history. I love history, but I'm not a history buff, but I do love history. And kind of off topic, but not really. Is
No, go ahead.
there?
I just prattled through what, 5 books.
Sure.
So
No,
go
there's
on. Somebody else take the stage.
there is I think there's a reel either circulating on Instagram or TikTok. I don't remember which. I think more. I see everything on Instagram, so I don't know what's happening on TikTok. But I saw a reel on Instagram where there was somebody that actually asked AI on their phone, "Hey AI, what is the best religion to follow?" Right, basically. And AI took a little bit, but AI came back with Christianity, and it gave a very very detailed reason as to why. And basically, it all came down to the fact that Jesus's death and resurrection was proof that no other religion has. So I thought that was really interesting. So on your note, when you're talking about all the different types of other types of um, religions and whatnot, whether they're categorized or cults or not. But the fact that I'm not saying AI is a thing, but I'm just saying that now we're leaning towards that way. Everything is kind of
That's
leaning on
fascinating that a
AI. Yeah.
chatbot came to that
Mhm.
conclusion.
Yeah. Can you believe it? I was
Hey,
like,
Siri.
wow. And I think I shared it. You should do it. You should do it.
Let's try it right now.
You should
I
try it.
was curious. I was like, wait, which AI? I'd be curious,
Yeah.
because there's so many
I-
right now.
Chat
Right.
Yeah, there's a
GPT.
lot of
I-
chatbots out there, and it depends on how many what equations they work
Yeah.
off of and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Exactly. But I think I might have shared it, I think, with you, DJB, and Christians, a few of you guys who are in Instagram. I tend to do that. Anybody that I know that if I'm following all these different, Christian channels on Instagram, and it always touches me, and I always share it with you guys, those of you who have Instagram. So you may have already seen it or you may not. But anyways, I just thought it was very, very cool and interesting that chat GPT came back, or AI came back with that definition and the reason, not just the definition, but the reason why Christianity made more sense, the most sense. I was like, yes, Jesus. It was like
well,
really,
I
really
mean, the
cool.
beautiful thing is that what that Christianity offers is an unconditional path to salvation. No
Yeah.
other religion offers that.
Right. Yeah.
And it
True,
doesn't
true.
matter like what your color is, if you black, blue, green, purple, where you from.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter your background.
Right.
Jesus says, "Come to me, everybody."
Yeah. I love that.
I find it amazing that Lee Strobel, who was an atheist and didn't want to believe, but yet he took the time to search, and now he's being used so mightily for
Mhm.
God's kingdom. And he's written more than just that book. If
Oh, yeah.
you look, he's got tons of books about like the case for faith and the case for heaven, and so God
That was my
continues
next
to
one, was the
use
case for
him.
faith.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing. Like anybody who doubts and has questions, I'm sure you're
He
going to
can
find the
answer them.
answers in his books.
This
Yeah.
man rewrote the book on Christian apologetics.
Oh,
He's very
I
good
love
at
that.
it. He can make the case to anybody who's willing to listen.
Reminds me of this story that I read not too crazy long ago about this guy who was during the civil rights movement was insanely racist and did everything bad to African Americans in the South. And then years later, he went and found Jesus and repented and went to church and basically accepted Christ right there at the altar of a black church.
Wow.
And he was
Wow.
very well known, a very well known gentleman. I don't remember. I want to say this was in Georgia. This happened,
Alabama.
and
Are
yes,
you thinking of George Wallace?
yes, George Wallace. Yes,
He's very well known, but his name escapes me. Oh,
Names,
sorry.
hey, names are hard for me. I just
Yeah.
remember I remember the
get
topic.
it.
Yeah, George Wallace was a very diehard segregationist,
Yes.
and later in life, he completely turned around and realized we're all God's children, and he
They.
became, not only anti-segregation but very much pro-civil rights and working towards unifying communities and things like that. He did a complete 180 and was famous for that.
Yay. Yay,
Mhm.
And
Jesus.
I'm
See?
sure he
That's
wrote a lot
awesome.
of things
Jesus.
on that too.
All right. I
But
don't have a huge library like Jay, but I have been collecting books. Sadly, I haven't read a lot of them. But okay, I know we talked about this earlier. I said, "Hey, wait, does devotionals count as books in this category?" And y'all said yes. So I wanted to share some of the things that I've been reading. Currently, I got this right now from my daughter. This one, I don't know what it's one. Daily Strength for Women. So this is a daily devotional, and this is what I do every single morning. Some of you guys have heard me say that I get up, awful early in the morning, like 4 or 5 hours even earlier before I get to work, so I can spend time and read and write in my devotionals, right? So I have that. I have quite a few devotionals. Here's another devotional by one of our pastor. It's called All In, which is really cool. And then really recently, I read this book, you guys, called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality by Peter Scazzaro. And one of the reasons I normally would not pick it up on my own, but this was a must read for when I was taking shepherd staff through the church. And one of the really cool things about this is being truthful about your emotions. We can't, yes, as Christians, we have to, we, Jesus modeled the way in which all of us should be, having love, faith, and peace and kindness and patience towards others, right? But it's also realizing that some things that might, make you quote unquote tick or that triggers you, and then dealing with those emotionally and making it so that you're healthy in those areas so that you can address people, you can approach them, you can coexist with other people, things like that. So until you truthfully accept how you feel about things, people, situations, you can't truly address that until your mental psyche or your mental health is in balance. Does that make sense? So this is one of the reasons why I read this book, and during shepherd staff, it was amazing. And then more stories about how the church started, how our pastor started our church, and then some other things like experiential wisdom. This is by Art and Kat Eustace, which I still have to read. And then y'all, if you remember, maybe Edna remembers, but recently we had a women's conference not too long ago. I want to say in March, and we had a well-known speaker. She's on TBN. She's on a couple other Christian channels. Faith Yuri Cho came on, and she was absolutely amazing. And she has this new devotional, which I'm like, I have to finish this devotional, and I'm sure this will probably be next year's devotional. So I'm set for next year. So those are my books that I've collected so far in the last year and a half that I, will at
Well,
some
I
point
love the
read.
the devotionals are
Yes,
wonderful,
I love
and
them.
and it's
yes.
interesting that you mentioned the devotionals because right here on my desk, I have these portals of prayer pamphlets that
Yay! I
you
have that
can you
too.
can you
Yeah.
can you can pick these up in any Lutheran church. They're published by Concordia Publishing House, which
Yeah.
is like a Lutheran centered publishing center. They also publish hymnals and things like that. And they have a new devotion for each day, and they publish these quarterly.
Hmm.
So, like this one is from April to June of this year,
Nice.
and there's going to be a new
Y'all,
one at the end of June. And each daily devotion is absolutely fascinating. In these daily devotionals are really wonderful to have around. So, and interestingly, when I grew up, my parents used to get these from the church when I was a
Mm.
kid. Every quarter they'd get one, and they'd put it on the back of the water closet in our bathroom. And I mean, what are you going to do at least once a day?
yeah,
You're going to
Yeah.
be in that bathroom.
yep. Hey,
Good.
y'all remember
Smart
Daily Bread
parents.
devotionals?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Say it again,
We
Christian.
used to get those. You guys remember Daily Bread devotionals? because we
think
used to get
so.
those like
Yes, yes,
every
Daily
month,
Bread.
I say,
Yes.
and it was like every day it would have just a little blurb really
Mm-hmm.
on like what you need for that day
Right.
for like just a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of word for you for your day. And so we used to get those every month at the
Yeah.
church until I guess the our subscription went out.
And
But it
and
was
then
those were something that was also very
mhm.
powerful.
Yeah. And then some of these online Bibles too, such as
Yep.
YouVersion, and I think there's other types of there's even called one called Talk Through the Bible, or no, Talk, what is it?
YouVersion is
Talk
an
Through the Word.
excellent online Bible. I
Yes,
Yes.
and
really
I
like it.
have a daily
Yes.
devotional that comes to me every single day from YouVersion, and I also have it through my church and whatnot. So I do read a lot of devotionals. Oftentimes I hear them in my car. But if you guys don't already know, y'all in our audience here, we have a devotional as well.
Yes,
So
we do.
shameless plug,
Hmm?
we have a devotional. It's not daily; it's like weekly, a weekly devotional here on the Walk and Talk Faith
Yes, if
channel.
Jason would get off his rumpus and make a few, I've got a few sketched out that I just haven't recorded yet, and he's done most of them.
So
Yeah, I
go
have a
check
few
them
I
out.
need
And
to.
and again, the way in which we do the devotionals is not because we're experts in what we do in our fields or things like that. It's just how we live out our faith. And that's what we talk about a lot, is how we live out our faith. Everything that you hear here on this podcast and in the episodes and the devotionals is just really how we, experience life, and how God talks to us in subtle ways, or large ways, whatever ways the Holy Spirit and God talks to us. We live that out, and this is what we want to share with you. And this is why it's so near and dear to my heart in terms of devotionals, because every single day, sometimes I repeat myself. I sit here and I'm like, wow, I think I wrote this once before, kind of thing. So, but oftentimes I just sit here and I just write exactly what God tells me it, is meaningful in that scripture that I just read for that day, for instance. So, yeah. So just, follow us and go check out our devotionals, y'all. And if you have any questions or sorry, ideas for devotionals, I'd love to hear them too. So we're always looking for ideas. Shameless plug again, sorry, but we're always looking for ideas, and we'd like this to be as much of an experience for you, our followers, our
Yes.
audience, as it is
And
for
a shameless
us.
plea
Yeah.
for engagement. Yes, we would love to see the comments.
Yes.
If you have suggestions or questions, put them in the comments. We will read them,
We'd love to hear it.
and
Exactly.
and we will
Exactly.
probably address them.
Yes, we have a lot of things coming up in the future that we just talked about not too long ago. Some of us on the production team, so we want to be able to just, you bring content for all of you, that you're interested in seeing, hearing, and knowing about. So, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So, I don't know if we know our email address. I think that's it. Or you could just go follow us on I think in the description here, if you guys go check, I think our link tree has all of our links to our channels. So our socials, or in Instagram, our what is it, X? I don't even know anymore. Our and our YouTube channel has all of our links, so you can go follow us there. And it has our email address. So please, we'd love to hear from you.
Walk and talk faith at gmail.com.
There you go. I knew one of you guys would have it. Awesome. Yeah. So in terms of podcasts, I want to segue into podcasts because we talked about our podcast. We're here on this podcast. How about for you guys? Are there any podcasts that you follow that you find interesting? I mean, I'd love to chime in with mine, but I want to see if any of you have some info, or something, some podcasts that you have heard or would like to share.
Well, I can say with authority that there are some really good Christian podcasts out there. I
Yeah.
know that there are.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most of the podcasts I listen to are more specialized. They're science podcasts, they're nerd podcasts, they're engineering podcasts, they're true crime, that kind of stuff. I'm not heavily into podcasts. And the stuff I do listen to is generally not the Christian podcasts, although I know there's really good ones out there because I've heard a few good ones
Sure.
over the years. So let's open the panel here. I mean, Andy and I have been holding the camera for so long here. I mean, y'all speak up. I mean, what are some good ones? I mean, I would love to see some more, so you'd have to tell me where to go.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
know Tony Evans. He for a minute he did a podcast series. I don't think it's like super like every week or every month, but he had a little series going on for a little bit on like different topics. For example, there was one where he did like he did a spinoff of his Kingdom Man series
Mm-hmm.
where he would like talk about men in the Bible and how we should be applying some lessons from that God uses some of these men into our lives. Similar to the fact he did something with Kingdom Women and Kingdom Families.
Mm.
So things of that nature, like those are tends things, the type of things I tend to fall into and
Mm-hmm.
find this because it just randomly pops up on my Instagram somehow.
Yeah.
I guess God knows that I need a word
You need a word for the
when I'm
day?
doom scrolling.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
write
when I'm
this
doom
down. What was his
scrolling.
name? Evans, you said?
Tony
Tony
Evans.
Evans.
Tony
Tony
Evans.
Evans?
Pretty popular,
Yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
And because it also even from that he also had like different like hybrid devotional slash lessons sets that we would use and that we could like have like a whole workbook in front of us and actually work things out and tangibly that's not the right word but
Tangibly, yeah, that's right.
It is.
Tangibly
yeah
sounds
You're
right.
right.
Depends on what follows it.
tangibly see what he's talking about as he's talking about it and then cross-reference it with the Bible that you would hopefully would have right next to you as you're doing the active study.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to share some of my Christian podcasts. And let me just say too, okay, I'm gonna share some of my favorite Christian podcasts, but let me just say this too. I love to listen to other pastors from other churches as podcasts. And they will have sometimes I'll just go to their YouTube channel and
Just
listen to
listening to their sermons.
yeah, listen to their sermons, their past sermons for the week. And I do have actually kind of a regimen. Every Sunday it's our church, right? Every Monday it's the Rock Church in San Diego. Every Tuesday it's another church here locally, and then Wednesday is another church, and then I even listen to a church in North Carolina called Authentic Church. So I listen to those sermons, I kid you not, every single week as though they are podcasts. Like I'll sit there and I'll listen and I'll work, I'll drive, or I'll do things around the house. So I don't limit it to just podcasts, so-called podcasts. But let me just share some of my favorite podcasts. And one of the reasons why I love these people so much, and I'll try to make it as quickly as possible or quick as possible. So there is someone on Instagram. He has his TikTok, he has Instagram, he has even a Discord channel. His name is Johnny Chang. One of the reasons why I love Johnny Chang is because he speaks truth from the streets, y'all. He was an former gang member, like like Asian gang member. And if you go Google him right now, his mom is they call her Mama Chang. His mom is on his newest episode right now, and she tells the story of how when he was born. She tells of how when she learned he was in the gang, and what the name of the gang was. And she for decades she'd known about these gangs because she grew up with them, right? But then knowing that her son was in that gang, her heart fell, and she was like, oh no. So and then she tells a story of how she became to know, or how she came to know Christ, how her son came to know Christ. So he speaks truth from the streets, and he goes to prisons where he was for so many years. He never thought he was going to ever get out of prison because he thought that was his life sentence, as he was going to be in prison. But God had a different story, because God's using his testimony to speak to those people in the prisons.
There we
And
go.
Amen.
amazing. You need to go follow him. Johnny Chang is his name. He's so amazing. I love him. And then very recently there was an episode what we call super hitters, or super podcasters, Christian podcasters. It was called the Christian Avengers. It also it included Johnny Chang as one of them, but there was other people like some people will criticize, Girls Gone Bible, right? The old way of Girls Gone, right? But they are actually, oh my gosh, you'd never guess.
They're amazing.
Sorry, not to
Mhm.
say bad things about them, but then you'd never guess that they would, out of the mouths come just amazing truth. And they're super awesome, and they're on tour right now. I love them. They were featured on the Christian Avengers. another person named Bryce Crawford. I believe he's like really young, like in his early 20s, and he also, to be able to evangelize to people his age group, and just speak truth is amazing. So they came together in this episode called The Christian Avengers, and spoke about how they came to know the Lord, and what are they doing, and how are they reaching people now. And you got to listen to it. It's truly amazing. And then I think the host, his name is George Kenko, I can't remember.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So he's also amazing. So one of the groups and podcast episodes I strongly suggest you guys recommend that you watch. And then I'll end with two. Besides Faith Yuri Cho on the TBN network and whatnot, but I also follow a gal named Janine Amapola Ward, who tells her story of how she was kind of worldly for a little bit, and then she started reading her Bible, rededicated her life, and then found the love of her life. And they did the right thing, and they did not consummate their marriage until the day they got married. They held off from sexual from having sex until they got married. And it was beautiful to be able to chronicle their life as they got engaged, and then as they were planning the marriage, and now she just gave birth to their very first child, newborn. I think he's like 2 weeks old, but he's amazing. And so that story, those are the kinds of things that I love to watch. I'm more of a how-to kind of person, how to do. So I love listening to the how-to podcasts. And then Candace Cameron Burr, you guys all may have known her as DJ from Full House, right?
Full
so
House,
she
yes.
she
many
also
many a men's childhood crush there.
yeah. So she has an awesome podcast too. And then her brother, Kirk Cameron, who's very strong and outspoken Christian follower, believer, and he also has a podcast. And then there's another one, like I
And
said,
Kirk Cameron was actually in the Left Behind adaptations.
Oh, there you go. And then lastly, TBN, like I mentioned, Faith Yuri Cho. There is a show that's called Better Together, which is truly amazing. Sometimes they'll have special guests like CeCe Winans and other people. So just Lisa Harper is one of the very first ladies that I started following when I first started at our church, and because I was given a devotional. Oh wow, I love devotionals, and they gave me a devotional. I was like, yeah, I was in heaven. It was beautiful. So she's somebody I love, and I strongly recommend it. If anybody out there would like to go follow them. But I listen to podcasts probably more than I listen to the radio or music. So yeah, I definitely have my tab on podcasts and sermons for sure. So those are my recommendations.
Awesome.
Getting back to books, I think in our notes, Edna had a few books that she wanted to bring up.
Yeah,
I did. I know that we talked about historical books and autobiographical books, and I had a couple of books that I want to mention that are self-help books that have been known among the Christian community as well. Every Man's Battle, Every Woman's Battle, Every Teen's Battle. Those are some really good books regarding human sexuality and just our victory over the sexual temptations that we have as Christians. And so it's Stephen Arterburn, and I guess it's co-authored by two others, Stoker and Yorkie. And then the Every Woman's Battle, I believe it's authored by Stephen Arterburn's wife. You may correct me on that, but really good books. I highly recommend them. It answers a lot of questions. It gives you some real-time strategies as a Christian, a scripture, and also examples how many people who have struggled with. Oh,
yeah,
thank
Shannon
you.
Etheridge wrote Every Woman's Battle.
Yes. Thank you. And how people like you and I have overcome sexual temptation, which is normal, which may appear normal and natural to the world, but we know, like addictions to pornography and so forth, that they can really cause us to spiral into something that's going to draw us away from God's truth. And so these are some strategic books that can help anybody. So I highly recommend them.
yay!
And then I also want to share my favorite I guess you could say it was a novel, when I was a child in middle school, Pilgrim's Progress. That's a really good book for a child who has to read something for school and write a book report on. It's by Paul Bunyan. And it's about it has a lot of symbolic meaning, but it's about the Christian walk.
Mhm.
And it's John Bunyan. Did I say Paul Bunyan? Oh my
Paul
gosh.
Bunyan was the guy with the axe.
Wait. Wow. What
I
a
was
day.
just
What
I
a
was just
day.
looking it up, and you said Paul Bunyan just as John Bunyan came up on my screen,
No.
and I went, "Oh, John Bunyan. Okay, that makes more sense."
No wonder I was
I want-
questioning it.
I
I
want
was like, my brain was telling me something's not right there, Edna.
It's okay. I want Paul
Sometimes
Bunyan
this
to write
happens.
that story. I want Bunyan.
Anyway, that's why we have each other, right?
Yeah.
Keep us straight here. So anyway, this is a really great book because it's just it's a nice story about a man's traveling through different cities, and he comes across different representations of what it is to be saved. And so, like, he comes across the city of destruction, and I think he meets a character by the name of Hope, and just a really good book. And I thought it was really neat, and it helps a young child or a middle schooler learn a little bit about what it is to have faith.
I see
as
it's been
we go
adapted
through
into a
learning.
film as well.
It was. I think it was adapted into a cartoon and maybe even a film. But
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't impressed by the films.
Yeah.
I like to let my imagination take over.
Yeah.
Sometimes our imaginations have a better description.
Oh, I always prefer
Yes.
books.
Yeah.
I prefer a book over a film every time.
Yeah.
If you hadn't guessed.
Yeah.
Right. So those were the two books that I wanted to share with you all.
That's
And
awesome.
just to be fair, John Bunyan predates Paul Bunyan by about 200 years.
You're not gonna let that one go, are you, Jason?
Well, I mean that's I mean the fact that
Oh my
somebody
gosh.
made a movie out of this only 4 or 5 years ago, it looks like, or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
when the book was written 400 years ago. That's cool.
I still think it's Paul Bunyan, so we'll go.
Look, I failed history, all right? Oh my gosh, I just have to give a little side note here. I had a history teacher who was a basketball coach, and he used to sit and teach and bounce his basketball the whole time he was talking about history. And of
No
course,
wonder why you failed history then.
I would just stare at the basketball and count the bounces.
I hate it when they make coaches teach history. I had a history teacher who was a football coach, and this guy didn't know diddly squat. He really didn't know anything. We didn't learn anything from him.
All I remember.
You never learned from coach. You never learned from coach.
Yeah.
All I remember
I had
from
a-
that. Yeah.
I had a coach.
Math class.
I had a football coach that taught economics. I'm all, what? And he would tell us like what stocks to buy, and I'd be like, I'm not buying them.
I had this happen. I took a math class at Cal State, and dude, I kid you not, he said what his name was, but so and so, but you can call me Coach. I'm like, oh no, this is not about to be that experience. Lo and behold, the class was exactly that experience. It was the easiest A I've ever received because I knew math, but it was not math.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, we're gonna take it back. We'll take it back.
Shout out to the
Back
educational
another book.
system.
Yes. So I was going to share one more book, The Road Less Traveled by
Oh, I like that.
Scott Peck. That's a really old book. It was written in 1978, but I studied it in college, and it just talks about, again, confronting your life problems and just avoiding, I guess, your self-doubt that's going to keep you from growing spiritually. And it's a psychology / spirituality book, but it's based on Christian ethics, but it's really good as well. So those are my 3 favorites that I wanted to share. Among 1,001 books that I have in my closet as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the thing. You may see that I have a lot of books here, They're not well organized. I have to dig to find things. There was a time when they were, but they're not now.
I mean, the fact you even have a library, that's amazing. I have stacks, but I don't have a library. Awesome.
One book that I think is good for our younger viewers is a book by Joshua Harris called "I Kiss Dating Goodbye," which I didn't grab off the shelf. It's up there, so I can't hold it up to show. But it's a great book for young people who are frustrated with the dating scene. And it really gives good advice on how to put God at the center of your life, how to focus on Jesus and your personal growth as a Christian, and how to be patient. You know that the love of your life will come, but you do not need to force yourself into the dating scene. It's a really good book. And there was a follow-up book called Boy Meets Girl, but I don't think Boy Meets Girl turned out so well. But I Kiss Dating Goodbye was actually a very good book, and I would recommend that to anybody who is single and struggling with being single. It really is a comforting book. I mean, I was single when I read it, and it gave me a lot of reassurance, and it gave me fresh perspective, and I enjoyed it a lot. I'm here. I got my hand on the microphone like an idiot. So
Awesome.
yeah, anybody who's young and or single in our audience, go check that book out. It's not thick, it's not dense reading like the early church. It's not a thick book like Kingdom of the Cults. It's actually a short book. You could probably read it in a day.
Wow.
And it's very good.
Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of reading to do. a lot of great suggestions. But I did read that when I was younger too. I Kiss Dating Goodbye. Way back when I was a teenager. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to be taken from it. It's recommended quite often to a lot of especially young people in the youth group age where, you know, everyone's always looking for their their Christian soulmate at 16, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good for. It really is a good fresh perspective for anybody who's a teenager well into their 20s. And
Nice.
you know, if you're my age and freshly single again, it's a good reminder.
Did anybody's parents make them read "Preparing for Adolescence" by Dr. James Dobson? It was like a book with a audio tape, and it taught all about changes in your body and preparing as a Christian. Did anybody read that?
No.
That one's not familiar to me.
You guys are really lucky. Although now looking back as a parent, I tried to do it with my kids as well. I did something similar, but yeah, I remember in my church, like that was like the end thing for all of our parents. So all of us preteens would say, "Have your parents read you the book yet? Have your parents had you do the homework
Oh my
yet?"
gosh.
Because we knew that book was getting around in our church.
There was one my parents had me read called "Taking the High Road." I don't remember who it's by. I don't remember much of the detail about it. I couldn't tell you more about it if you wanted to look it up right now. But yeah, it was one of those types of books.
Wow.
I mean, if I were to review it now, I'd say it's an excellent book, and it does teach children what they need to know, the basics, from a godly perspective. But when you're an adolescent, you do not want to read those books.
No.
Right. Probably as a parent, you approve and love it.
Exactly.
But when you're a teenager, you want nothing to do with it.
You're like,
Yeah.
no.
Sure, yeah.
Any type of assigned reading is like a no at that age.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Good stuff. I love it, you guys. Good talk. Good talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about like musicals, we've talked about books and podcasts and devotionals. We've run the gamut from a lot of Christian media perspectives. What I want to talk about, in our last topic today, is other Christian media. It could be anything. And here's an example. Like when I used to have an auntie that would hand out mints, and they were called testaments, and they little mints with a Bible verse on the wrapper.
That's cute.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I grew up in the '90s with the era of we talked about it last time, where it's like Christian They were trying to make everything a Christian alternative. Where you had Christian bracelets, Christian T-shirts, Christian rock bands, Christian hip hop.
The WWJD bracelets that you still
That's
got.
what we
Yes.
used to. Yes.
Yep, and T-shirts are a real good one. You still see those sometimes, but I specifically remember there was a very large Christian club at my high school called the Higher Dimensions, and
Oh.
at the time it was fashionable for people to wear around these shirts from Gold's Gym.
Oh.
I don't know if Gold's Gym ever existed out west.
Oh yeah,
they do.
Oh,
it's
We have a
okay.
gym.
Okay.
We have a gym called
Yeah.
Gold's Gym. Yeah.
We
Yeah,
do.
people would wear Gold's Gym T-shirts around, and the Higher Dimensions made themselves a send-up of those Gold's Gym T-shirts that said the Lord's Gym on them in the same font and the same style and everything, and a picture of Jesus doing a push-up with a cross on his back.
yeah.
Very
I've seen
impactful.
those.
Wow.
I've seen those.
That was cool.
Yeah, Christian T-shirts were huge in the '90s. I remember that as well.
My chair sank. Forgive me. There we go.
I do remember those mints. They're like the knockoffs of the Vela mints.
No.
They're testaments.
Wow,
The Bible
okay.
verses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's hilarious.
That's great. What a sweet auntie.
And one thing you can probably find as a movie, I know that DVDs can be purchased cheaply by calling the ministry, and I don't know what the ministry is called, so you'd have to look them up. But there's a man named Emerson Eggerichs and his wife that do a really, really good seminar called Love and Respect. And they're basically addressing a large group of people to talk about men's and women's roles in a marriage, in a relationship, how they differ and how to reconcile those differences and things like that. And it's fairly long, Emerson speaks for a while, takes a break, and his wife takes over, and then he comes back. They're very funny, they're very witty and pithy, and they're very engaging, and they're very, very focused on scripture, especially several commentaries in the epistles. It's very, very good. And if I can find a link to that, I will drop that in the description on our video, because I believe it is out there somewhere other than just buying DVDs. I don't think they're just doing DVDs anymore.
You said
But it's a
piffy?
very-
What's piffy? Sorry.
Pithy means being short and to the point.
Okay. I was like, did you see my face?
yeah,
I was
I
like,
learned.
piffy.
That reminds me of a similar seminar. Do you all remember Gary Smalley? He had an audiobook series and a training, kind of like a training on lasting relationships. And it was how to love your partner, your husband, your wife better, or even how to express love amongst the family. And so he had different animal traits that
Wow,
were...
he's written a lot of books.
Yeah. And he would equate like the personality traits, not animal traits, sorry, but personalities to a certain personality of an animal, like the otter's personality or the golden retriever's personality. This is very different from what we see now where they say your spirit animal. It's nothing like that. It was more of a personality trait comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really informative. And I remember our parents sat us down. Wow, looking back now, my parents were really into like self-help and motivating us. But they sat us down and we saw the video of Gary Smalling, and it was I think it was called Hidden Keys of Loving Relationships. And we went through the personality tests and how we related to one another. I think those were one of the first few seminars, the one that you mentioned and Gary Smalley's, that talked about
The keys to loving relationships. Yep, I just found it.
I think they were the very first seminars that talked about relating to one another and personality traits. And then after that just opened the doors for other self-help books and audio tapes and DVDs. Mm-hmm.
Christian self-help. That's a big alternative Christian media thing as well. But I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Always great to like the love languages is another one that I think that was really popular.
Yes.
My wife and I talk about those a lot all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Annie kind of angled into this on the podcast. So many churches nowadays stream their services.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
is a great form of alternative
Oh
media.
my goodness,
If
I
you wake
love
up
it.
feeling bad on Sunday morning, if you've got the flu or something like that, and going to church is a bad idea,
Hmm.
you have thousands of churches to choose from that you can attend just by watching their stream.
Well,
And I'll say
And I mean,
since
talk
COVID,
about a powerful method of
mhm,
outreach.
let me tell you
and
this
I'll say
because remember I said that I watched. There's a regimen. I had like my Sundays, my Tuesdays, my
Mhm.
Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesday. One day when I was home, I think I was either I think it was a holiday or I was sick. On a Monday, I watched all of my services in one day. Then I was like, dang, what do I watch now? So I was literally looking for more podcasts and more churches, and then I ended up finding like Johnny Chang and things like that. So I mean, I'm constantly looking for new sermons.
Mhm.
And because that was one thing that I enjoyed doing. I loved visiting physical churches. I would go visit a Calvary Chapel, or I would go visit a Baptist church, or I love it. I just love to see how other people, just how the word is being spoken and preached, and I loved music more than anything. I loved to listen to the worship music and just see how each one of these churches would always do worship. So yeah, that's definitely something. I love the fact that there's more and more streams now, more and more churches
I'll say
streaming.
especially since COVID, like
Mhm.
when COVID shut everybody down, everybody had to learn how to do it,
Mhm.
Hmm.
and so now like you get you get churches large and small doing it
Yeah,
on streaming. So there's really no shortage of content out there of Christian media. So you can always find like get a word in for the day.
I love
Mhm.
that.
All how much content is constantly being pumped out by different churches across the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah. Um, Anybody had any experience with Christian video games?
I want to hear your story.
No,
I think
Do
only Amber could ask.
tell.
I
I
want
think
to
Come
hear.
I
on.
think this
I've
might be a
been
unique thing.
I've been
Well,
dying all this time to hear this
Yes,
because I know
well,
I
it. I've heard it, but I want
I
to.
saw
Yeah, I think I know what story DJB is going to tell here. I think he's
I'm
told it to both of us,
excited.
or told it to all of us, and
I
I
saw this in
want
the
him to tell
rundown.
the
I need to
story
hear
on
the
the
story.
podcast. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
tell, DJB. The stage is yours.
I
Do
mean,
tell.
I shared this on Mixed Talk, the other podcast that Annie and I have done in the past before. But going back to how in the 90s there was this concept that, like, especially my parents subscribed to it quite a bit, where they wanted their children to not have to consume any secular media whatsoever. That they just wanted Christian media. They wanted
Mhm.
me to listen to Christian music and watch Christian television, read Christian books, and all that stuff. I went to a Christian school. Anyway, so I this was the year the Super Nintendo dropped, and yeah, I'm aging myself now, but this is the year the Super Nintendo dropped, and I really wanted like a Super Nintendo. I wanted to play Super Mario World. It was the biggest thing, and I was super young. I'm probably like 5, 6 years old. And I remember, like, I just always didn't think that I never believed that my parents would actually get it for me, simply because, one, my dad was a pastor, didn't make a lot of money, and two, yeah, I mean, it's not Christian, it's not a Christian product. I remember entering into like a sweepstakes in my local grocery store that was giving away a Super Nintendo that Christmas, and for whatever reason, it's such a crapshoot. But I thought, had my heart set on winning it, so I entered the sweepstakes. My dad told me the next day that I didn't win, so I was like, okay, well, that's that. I find out a few years later, like, my dad was telling me a little bit about some context, is that he had spoken to his mentor, one of the pastors that, like, he studied under when my dad was becoming a pastor. His name is Pastor Wesley. He lives in, like, Washington State. My dad was stationed in the army in Washington, and that's how he got connected with this pastor. And he would constantly call him just for advice, pastoral advice, fatherly advice. He was telling my dad, sorry, yeah, my dad was talking to him, and he was asking him, like, I don't. I know Daniel had his hearts really set on like getting this video game console, and I just I don't feel comfortable getting him something that's not Christian. I don't want him to like not focus on his studies and all that stuff. And and Pastor Wesley just straight up said like, for goodness sake, Ray, he's only going to be a kid once. So come Christmas morning, I open up my present. Lo and behold, it is a brand new Super Nintendo with Super Mario World in it. Thank God. And one, I'm super ecstatic, and then two, there's a game that comes with it, and I open the game. And I'm like thinking, oh my God, what is it? Is it Legend of Zelda? Is it F-Zero? Is it Mario Kart? Like, I get another game besides Super Mario World. The game is Bible Adventures.
Hey.
He had to tie it in somehow.
No,
He probably looked long and hard to find the Bible Adventures game to go for the Super Nintendo.
I'm
Yes.
sure he did.
he probably went to every Christian bookstore he could find in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and every video game store saying, "Isn't there a Bible game somewhere?"
Oh my god!
Can we like flash what this looked like on the screen somewhere?
If you look it up, there are YouTube videos that talk about how this is one of the worst games of all time. A lot of gamers will talk about how it was one of the most terrible games. And it was made by a company. Oh God, the company escapes me, but they were known to be making really terrible Christian games. And the premise of these games were like, one, you could be Noah, and you're basically running around trying to pick up animals and put them in the ark. And you can stack animals on your head like 5, 6 up at a time, and that's just the premise of the entire that mini game. And then there's Pharaoh's daughter, and you're carrying baby Moses, and you have to run to the end of the level without getting hit, or else you drop the baby in the water. Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
I highly recommend.
They had their
looking this up.
message right, but they don't seem to have done a very good execution.
Did your dad ever play that game with you? Did he know what it was?
No.
He just saw the title
could have
and ran
made
with it. He just saw the name of the game.
Him.
He said, "I'll give you a console, but."
Well, it's
Right.
funny that he was looking for Legend of Zelda and hoping that the second game would be Legend of Zelda. And we all know what a 800-pound gorilla the Zelda franchise has become in the
Yeah.
last 30 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the earliest versions of Zelda, especially like the original Legend of Zelda for the original Nintendo Entertainment System, which that ages me right there because I was a teenager when I got that.
Wow,
But
DJB.
he actually had a cross on his shield. Now,
That's
as the game developed and the franchise developed and more games came along, they decided they were going to make Link more secular. They were trying to be politically correct. But originally, Link had a cross on his shield.
Yep.
I should have told my dad that when I was a kid.
Yes. So did you play the game, DJV, or was it kind of sitting on the shelf collecting dust?
Bible Adventures? I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of those games where once you play it for a few hours, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, well, and also,
Can I play Super Mario now?
oh yeah, Super Mario World. That saved my childhood right there. And much to the chagrin of my parents, I became a lifelong gamer. Ever since that moment, I got a Super Nintendo. Like I blame my Twitch career on my parents, I guess, if you think of it that way. But yeah,
It's all
no,
the fault of Bible Adventures
Gosh.
for the Super Nintendo.
yeah, right.
Wow.
I was also a terrible kid to visit. None of my friends wanted to go over to my house and play video games because they knew I had Bible Adventures and Super Mario World.
That's it.
But now you're the cool gamer.
Hey, you're gonna have to load up Bible
Cool.
Adventures on stream at some point.
Oh
Just
my
load it up for old
gosh,
time's sake.
We should totally play it. It was made by Wisdom Tree. It's just
Wisdom Tree.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the one. Yeah.
Oh my my god, that's hilarious. I think we should try to
I love that story.
We should try to.
Yes.
Good
I
story.
wonder if you have to play with an emulator now or not. But I think
Oh,
we
it's
should
definitely
try.
emulator.
We should
Yeah,
totally.
you could probably get
play
it on an emulator now.
Let's
yeah.
do it.
You could probably
Let's
play it on MAME or something
it.
like that.
Let's do it. I think we should do it. We should totally do it. I would
Live
love
on
to.
stream.
Yeah, on stream.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Christian games haven't evolved that much even to this
Yeah.
day.
No.
There's
Yeah,
still
sadly.
there's still a lot of stinkers out there,
Awful.
game wise. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm probably theologically wise. Like, there's some really good ones. I know there's one. It's like a first person game where you're Jesus and you do miracles or something
Really?
like that.
What's the name of that
It-
one?
I wouldn't be
Interesting.
surprised.
What? What's
I
the
It's
wouldn't
on
be surprised some of
Steam.
those games helped to contribute to the almost fall of video games in general back in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
What? Say it again. What happened?
I
Well,
wouldn't
there
be
was-
surprised if some of those games helped contribute to the fall of video games because they
Oh,
almost didn't make it.
Yes.
Oh, that's the
Yeah.
80s. So it's a little before then.
Yeah.
That was in the early 80s there was a catastrophic video game crash where all the consoles got shoved under beds and all the cartridges got stuck in closets and forgotten, and the Nintendo Entertainment System kind of resurrected the video game business out of that. But what Christian's referring to in the 90s, as people were transitioning, floating between the console and PCs were just starting to get capable of play video games. There was a little bit of a crater in there in the mid 90s where video games were just PUD.
Yeah.
Just
PUD. Okay. Enough said.
and they weren't developing with the technology.
Yeah.
But it took a couple of years for the video game business to get itself out of that funk, but it did a good job. It brought us to where we are now.
I'm guessing the
Awesome.
early 80 consoles that were under the bed were the Atari ones
Oh
The
yeah.
Atari 2600, yes.
with the
And-
joystick.
Yes,
Yeah.
with the little
Yep.
joystick and the single button. Yep,
Yeah.
I had one of those when I was a kid too.
Hmm.
So, I mean, some of the lesser, violent games, such as like Donkey Kong, could be kind of a crossover, if you will.
Well, I
So-
guess it depends on
yeah.
your interpretation. It's a giant
gonna
gorilla trying
say,
to crush a guy with
mean,
barrels.
Well, I
Donkey
mean,
Kong's super
it's
violent.
yeah, exactly. It's not violent in that nature, right? And then neither is like Super Mario or so that's just getting coins and kicking turtles.
I think,
Yeah, you're going around stomping on wildlife in that game.
yeah.
violence.
I mean, if you think about the context of the time, like you also have to keep in mind that this was the era when Christian churches were all warning people look at this game Mortal Kombat and how horrible
Yeah.
it is, and there's blood and they're fighting and they're killing each other. Beware, don't let your children poison their minds with these games.
Yes,
You
and
know.
there was a window there from the earliest arcade machines after it went from pinball to video games in the 1970s,
Mhm.
all the way into like DJB is saying in the 90s, where people were super skeptical of video games.
Yes.
They assumed kids were gambling over them. They assumed that they were corrupting the kids, that they're rotting their brain, that they were, getting radiation poisoning from the monitors. I mean, there was every conspiracy you can imagine was thrown at video games, and so that would be a hard environment for Christian media to break into,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
most of the
Sure.
most of the Christian world was scared of them.
Yeah. I mean, when my brother and I were younger, I think we got saved at I was, I want to say 12, 13 years old, way back when. But my brother and I used to frequent a lot of the penny arcades. We would actually go to the arcades and play games. So some of my early recollections of video games and more tamer games, such as what is it, like Space Invaders or
Frogger.
yeah, things like that, where it was all about skill. It wasn't about trying to mess with your mind. It was like I was like, my brother was my only sibling, or is my only sibling, so I don't have sisters. I never grew up with sisters, so I was always like a tomboy, quote unquote. So I really took to video games as a kid and sports as a kid because I wanted to show me in my parents, like, or my family, like, hey, I can do what Ronnie does. My brother's name's Ronnie. I can do what he does, but probably even better. and then some of his friends, like, they would challenge us to play video games. Like, you'd put your quarter up there next. I got next. Whatever, okay. And then you try to make that session last long. So I'll be like, well, you'll be here for a little bit. Try to get all cocky. But
Yeah,
so
games back then were based on a score. There wasn't a
they
storyline.
were
There
based on
wasn't a beginning
skill.
to an end. There was just you were trying to see how high a score you could rack up before you ran out of lives or whatever it was.
Exactly. Yeah, that was always my favorite.
And that
is to be able-
scorekeeping system is what made a lot of skeptical parents in the day believe that it was leading to gambling, because they thought kids would be betting on who could get the higher score.
Yeah, I can get that. I can see how that can be troublesome for parents.
It wasn't
but,
playing out like that,
yeah.
but they were afraid it would.
Yeah, but yeah, and I
mean,
get it.
I hung out in arcades when I was young, and I don't remember ever placing a bet on how I would do on a score.
Right, exactly. For me, it was just fun because I wanted to get high score and I wanted to beat my brother's friends.
Speaking of which, Mortal Kombat was my go-to game at the arcade.
Oh,
and I was good at it.
And that game was pretty gruesome.
Yes, it was.
That's awesome, Edna.
Yeah. I left my boyfriend in the dust every time.
That's good. That's good. I can see how parents are
good
like
times.
Parents.
Yeah.
And I'm a gamer too, like DJB, right? I'm a gamer. We're all gamers, I think, most of us. But yeah, so you just have to draw a fine line, right? There's just know when to say no and when to say,
Yeah,
I
think as far as the focus of our podcast, most of us here are gamers.
Yeah.
And I think we all know, that we are mature enough that we're not going to let whatever secular messages are coming to us through this video game, or whatever secular storyline is being played out in a video game, we're not going to let that influence our faith. We know that's fiction, and so that's what the games have evolved into, where you can still play these video games because it's not going to keep you from loving Jesus.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And any game that tries to tell me not to love Jesus, I'm not interested in playing.
Yeah, exactly.
The games tend to steer away from that these days.
Yeah, and there are games that I used to play. Sorry, Christian. There are games that I used to play, even a couple years ago that I don't play now because, for that reason, it's because, I see there is some games that are demonic, right? So that actually channel that. So I was like, oh no, thank you. So I know that some of, even some of my community, like, when are we ever going to play this game again? I'm like, never. You guys can, but I won't, So yeah, it's learning how to draw the line and knowing when to say no. And, and then, like you said, you said it perfectly, Jason. There's not a game that's going to stop me from loving Jesus and proclaiming his gospel and his truth. Yeah, for sure.
And I find also in some of these games, like there's especially in the more story oriented games, there's sometimes there's little hints to Jesus here or there, and like in the form of, it may never say Jesus or God or anything like that, but they'll say something like, it's like, oh, it's the ultimate good, or something of that type of nature.
Right.
We know what it is. For example, the one that pops up top of my head, the old game Earthbound. It's a very old game. It came, I don't remember when it came. It came out in the 93, 94, 95-ish. And there was a mechanic in that where the only way to beat the main bad guy was to pray.
No, nice. Good.
And if you didn't do that, then you wasn't beating the main bad guy. And so what they had, and they made it seem like, oh, you're praying to your friends and your family and all that stuff. No, we know what it actually was. It was praying to God, and that's what the ultimate evil. And that,
Yeah.
So they do stuff like that, to hint around it.
Yeah.
But still had the message in there.
That reminds me, like my favorite game of all time, still to this day, is Chrono Trigger. I played that when I was a kid in 1996-ish or something like that. And there was this website that got really popular in the late 90s already, in like the early 2000s, early days of the internet. But it was a site called Chrono Trigger Resurrection, and it listed out all the parallels that game had with the Bible and the Gospel specifically, and how even in the game there's three men that have the same names as the three wise men in the Bible, and it was really fascinating to me just because it's people were comparing like other films like The Matrix, where people were saying like, oh, it's kind of like a messianic type story, right? But the amount of parallels listed out like completely eclipse any other story that was brought forward as like oh, this could be in comparison to like biblical teachings and biblical principles. And I didn't know that when I was a kid. I just thought it was a very fascinating story that really resonated well with me.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things. Parents, if you still feel like video games are poisoning your young potential Christian child's minds, let me have video games. Let them give video games a shot. I feel like that's
Yeah.
a very
I think that
archaic thing, but
Yeah.
That
go ahead.
message for me as a parent, because I do struggle with some of the video games that my kids bring home, and I say, nope, not in this house.
Yeah.
That's going out.
I'll tell you what, because I am a fairly avid gamer,
Mm-hmm.
I am not very restrictive on the video games that I let my kids play. And I can tell you that my kids play Red Dead Redemption. My other son, they play Hearts of Iron, which is kind of a history type game. Zane plays Valorant avidly. He participates. Look at DJB's hat. He participates in the Fan Bam tournaments. My two sons are actually being confirmed tomorrow as Christians, and they had to write statements of faith for their confirmation. And they did such a beautiful job on those statements of faith. These are boys who've had their own high-powered computers with big. I'm a tech nerd. I've always been a tech nerd, so my kids have nice equipment. These kids have really nice computers in their bedrooms with big monitors, good mechanical keyboards, nice mice, all that kind of stuff. And they play a lot of video games.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came down to it, when it came to their real life, and when it came to their actual faith, these boys did a brilliant job. And they're being confirmed as very confident, very faithful Christians with a solid understanding of the Ten Commandments, of the catechisms, of the creeds. They've done a wonderful, wonderful job. So I'm not worried about them. They can play whatever video games they want because I know I raised some good Christian boys.
Yay.
That's
Kudos
awesome.
to you, Dad.
Yes,
Yay.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Again, it's just learning, right? Knowing, when to draw the line and when to say no and when to say, not right now.
Some of the same arguments were made about music in the past.
Yes.
How music is going to
Oh,
poison
yeah.
our children's mind. And
Especially with hip hop, like it's
yeah,
our rule was always
or
like
heavy metal.
something.
Remember when heavy
Mhm.
metal was under fire back in the 80s?
People are gonna have a blues music.
Forever.
I always
Blues.
loved heavy metal music back then. But the problem, the fact of the matter is, it's not the outside influences. It's the role of the parent to step in, talk to the kids about what they're seeing, talk to the kids about what they're listening to, and explain to them the difference between fiction and reality. And if you do your job as a parent, all these outside influences are just entertainment to the kids. They're not going to turn the kids into a monster.
Well, I think that
Our
also
rule-
speaks that speaks volumes. Sorry, that speaks volumes to each of our own parents, right? Where they've given us that quote unquote chance and that decision to do what we want, and then each of us have all look how we turned out. So I guess yes, just like God is, he gives us free will. We give our children, free will to decide as well. We teach them right from wrong, and we just hope and pray that they follow, the truths, and just like God does with each of us. He didn't force us to to accept Jesus. He, we had to hear it, we had to learn it, we had to come to that decision on our own. So I think what we're speaking here are exactly the love and the grace that God shows us on a daily basis, and his loving, how he wants us to be. Of course he wants us, all of us to be saved, and he would rather that no one perish, right? So the Bible talks about that, about uh, exactly that. So I think it's just allowing your children, and again, giving them the foundation, giving them the rule book, if you will, just know right from wrong, and you know and like giving them the opportunity to come to that decision and make that decision on their own. And just as we as parents just have to keep praying, just like you know just like Jesus prayed for us and interceded on our behalf, right?
Yeah, I think you wrapped that up beautifully.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that can be said about all media, whether it's Christian media or otherwise. It really comes down to what's in the heart of the person watching it.
Right.
How strong their faith is. Do they love Jesus? What do they believe? And that's an individual choice
Yeah.
for every human being on earth. It can't be forced. It can't be chosen for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make that decision. And hopefully that, you're not allowing secular media to steer you away, which we are 5 perfect examples of people who've been exposed to secular media our whole lives. Yet we're still good, faithful Christians, and there's millions of people like us.
Right.
So we know it's possible.
Right. It's possible, people. It's possible, parents. It's possible, children. Yeah, it's all good. Yay. We're living examples of that. So, and that's what we're hoping that each of you, all of you out there, can garner from our podcast, from our episodes, is that we're not experts, right? We're not experts in the things that we do and say and speak about, but we are definitely one that can lift one another up and keep each other accountable. But also we hope that our experiences can resonate with you. So if there's things that you're struggling with, that you maybe some of the things that we've talked about in these past episodes that you maybe encountered, just know that you're not in it alone. And that's exactly what we as the community need to be able to do, is to be able to kind of shoulder each other's issues and problems and pray for one another. So just know you're not in it alone. We're here for each other. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to wrap up our episodes about
I was about to say,
Christian
DJB, why don't you
media.
button us up here?
Yeah.
All right, well, y'all, that concludes our 2-parter episode on Christian media. And this is a lot of fun. I love talking about all our memories and all our stories relating to all the, just our experiences in our long storied Christian lives here. So yeah, be sure to check us out for our next episode coming soon. And thanks everybody. Thanks Edna,
Thanks,
Christian,
everybody.
Jay, Annie. Always a pleasure, y'all.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Love y'all.
See ya.
Hey there! Thanks for tuning in to the Walk and Talk Faith podcast. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to check the show notes below in the description. If you're enjoying the show, please support us by giving us a like and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Did you know we have devotionals? You can check them out on our Walk and Talk Faith channel. We can't wait for you to join us again for our next episode, so stay tuned. And remember, God is on the air, and so are we.